All right, we are live for another episode of Performance That Matters, joined by a very special guest all the way from Utah in the US of A, joined by Hayden James. Hayden, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
For the people at home who don't know who you are, give us the elevator pitch. We just walked in. We've got 5 floors, so we've got about a minute. We need to get to know each other. You don't want to know me. I want to know you. Give me
All
everything
right.
there is to know, 60 seconds or less.
Yeah, well, I'm Hayden. I'm a board certified sports dietitian. I'm also a certified diabetes educator. I'm also an endurance athlete, but actually multi-sport athlete. I run ultras, I rock climb, I ski, like alpine ski and ski tour. I lift weights, kind of jack of all trades, master of none. Have a private practice called Satiate Nutrition, and I work primarily with endurance athletes, but I see a variety of people engaging in different sports. And then I also work part-time in an adult endocrinology clinic. And if you don't know what the word endocrinology means, that's the hormone secreting system in the body. But I'm primarily working with people with diabetes as a diabetes educator. So that's a little bit about me.
Do you ever sleep? That's a lot to have on your plate.
Yeah, I don't have kids and a very supportive husband. So,
Get
yeah.
away. Hayden, did you grow up doing endurance sports? I'm assuming you grew up in the mountains if you're into skiing, you're into running, rock climbing.
Oh, I didn't. I grew up in Oklahoma, which is like the flattest of flat states at sea level. So, but I did grow up running cross country. I played soccer. I briefly, very briefly ran in college. And I say very briefly because I lasted a whole semester and was injured the whole time and never competed. So, did I run in college? Not really. But yeah, I've been running for like 20 years. So, it's kind of my number one thing.
As long as you got the team photo in the yearbook, then still counts.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we're going to be talking about lots of things to do with endurance, mountain sports, altitude, heat, all these really cool things. But one thing I want to start, because I love it when I look at your Instagram, is that you do a lot of myth busting. I think it's very, very important, especially in the climate that we're in on social media, where in the nutrition world, there is just absolute garbage. I literally just watched a video about a guy talking for 3 minutes about how bad water is and how it just dilutes everything in your body, and you should be drinking fat with water and you should be drinking juices to hydrate your cells. And the thing is, it had like 7 million views. It's absolutely wild what gets around on social media. So let's do a little bit of myth busting. We'll make it
Sure.
related to sports nutrition. And these are topics you're very, very well versed at. And this first one's very interesting because I have probably got about 20 messages in the last week talking about collagen. Is it good for athletes? Is it bad? How do we use it? When should we use it? When shouldn't we use it? What's the deal with collagen?
Yeah. Well, I would say that collagen isn't necessarily bad, but is it the optimal protein of choice? So I would argue maybe not. And a lot of the studies or the people that support the benefit of it are looking at connective tissue health from a collagen perspective. But if we have adequate amounts of protein in our diet and we have like high leucine intake, we're gonna have appropriate connective tissue health, provided we also have some other micronutrients. And I would love to know your perspective on this, but the studies I've looked at with collagen, they've been really small and have shown the one study that I can recall off the top of my head that showed benefit for um, connective tissue health was a really small sample size. They dosed like 15 grams of collagen with some vitamin C, I don't know, like a half hour, an hour before some sort of exercise. And that's the study that gets referenced a lot to show its benefit. Um, but when the other studies that have looked at collagen being taken like after a workout or after some sort of rehab exercise don't show that it's superior to whey protein, for example. So if someone's consuming animal protein, you're probably better off with a whey protein. But if I'm injured and I'm throwing a bunch of stuff at myself to see if something will help, it's a pretty benign thing to do to just take some collagen before a workout. I actually wrote an article about this in Climbing Magazine with a ton of references, so we can end up linking to that because it's pretty thorough. But I love, what's your perspective on that? You share.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. First thing I always look at when I have this convo is total protein. Pretty much all my
Yeah.
athletes, total protein, and then what's the quality of that total protein? You probably got it covered. But I will admit, I have one athlete that I very much and very adamantly make him take collagen. And the reason I do it is not necessarily because I believe him taking collagen will work, but more so that he believes taking collagen will work. And he has a very big history of joint problems, and he takes so many other things, and he has a really good sports medicine team with a good sports physio, good sports doctor, constantly treating his joints. And the small contribution I can make is at least make him think that this thing is helping him. And the amount of times he's gone to training and then his wife has messaged me and said, yeah, you know what, he said he felt really good. And then we're looking at scans and looking at him, we're going, that it's pretty much the same where it is. But as long as he believes it, that's whatever. Placebo is a real thing. But outside of that, total protein, I think, trumps collagen.
For sure. And I agree with you. I have athletes that I work with that enjoy taking it. They love putting it in their coffee, right? It dissolves pretty well. It's flavorless. So if it's helping them reach their total daily protein, great. It's just not something that I go out of my way to recommend.
Yeah, and like you said, it's fairly benign, right? It's not like if you're going to take it, it's like, oh my God, there's all these negative effects that are going to happen. So, hey, what? If you think this thing is really working, you've got an overall good diet, you've got good protein in there, good quality protein. If you think collagen's going to be helping you, why not throw it in? But in reality, you're probably pretty good. If you're on a tight budget, save your money.
Exactly.
This is a controversial one, and this is massive in the land of the United States of America, where you are from. Getting big here. I must admit, they're getting big here. These are definitely growing, but AG1 everywhere in America, powdered green sups as well. I feel like every big supplement company in the USA, when I go over there, has a powdered greens or some powdered different color supplement. What's the dealio with that, Hayden? Are these good or are these bad?
Oh my gosh. Well, first, is this not popular thing in Australia? Like,
They're
are green
becoming
sprouts not
popular for
everywhere?
sure. Not like the US though. The US is a whole
Oh,
nother beast.
okay. Yeah, I think of all supplements, powdered greens probably give me the ick more than anything. Because hey, I don't know how it is in Australia, but at least in the United States, our supplement industry is regulated very differently. We have the Food and Drug Administration, known as the FDA, that oversees medications and supplements. But there's a specific law called the DOSHA, the Drug Safety I don't remember. DSHEA Act, which actually prevents the FDA from regulating supplements as strictly as medications. So really, they are just responsible for themselves. There's no really oversight for how they regulate and test their products for contaminants. Is what they're claiming is in the product actually in the product in the dose in which it says? And there was a study, this is a couple years ago, that looked at greens powders and showed that a lot of times they were more often than not contaminated with heavy metals. So even from that perspective, I really like to issue caution with using powdered green supplements. Also, we don't have any data to show that there is health promoting as consuming vegetables and fruits in their whole food form, right? Like we get all the fiber from that. There's got to be some sort of level of nutrient degradation and something when it goes from whole food source to powder. And then a lot of times those things have so many vitamins, minerals, proprietary blends, other things in them. And a lot of athletes I'm working with, they're taking so many supplements that we're doubling up, tripling up, quadrupling up on different micronutrients that could be benign, but also could over time lead to toxicity if you're really, really consistent about taking those things. And they're hella expensive. Like AG1, if you actually took that every day, I think it's like $75 a month. Like it's pretty insane.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people who are taking it probably aren't paying for it. At least a lot of people who tell you that they're taking it.
Someone's paying for it. So,
Yeah.
like because the company feels like they advertise everywhere. I mean, they advertise on Joe Rogan, they on Huberman. Like I don't know, they've got really great marketing, but
Oh, their
they drive
marketing
me
is 12 out of 10.
crazy. You don't need it, and if you don't want to eat fruits and vegetables, Sure. Okay. Let's maybe do it. Let's try one. Let's make sure we get one that's third party tested, has one of those seals of approval on it. And the only other situation where I've actually recommended a greens powder is I had a pilot client who was like a hobby pilot. So he had his own small prop plane. He was flying in and out of Alaska a lot. Just sometimes logistically, he could not get in like fruits and vegetables. And so we used a green powder with him for those scenarios, but this wasn't an everyday use. It was really, I'm in a scenario where I don't have access to fruits or vegetables, so I'm going to lean on this. Um, or the only other thing I've thought about with greens powders is in high altitude, like mountaineering situations where people are gone for a long period of time, they're acclimating, obviously very small population of people on this earth. Of like could that give some antioxidants? If we found a way to like mix the powder in with like a high calorie oatmeal, could that give a little extra stuff without adding too much weight? But anyway, those are kind of some other very, very weird scenarios where it might be helpful.
How would they stack up against like a multivitamin or something like that? Is it the same line of thought that you're probably not getting enough, or do you think the multivitamins are better? Or
I think it just depends on the greens powder. Like some of them have a lot of stuff in them, some of them aren't a complete multivitamin. So I think it just depends on the brand.
yeah, I love the point that you made about comparing it with the whole foods as well. Many years ago, I had a conversation with a gentleman called Dr. Gary Slater, very, very prolific sports dietitian down here in Australia, worked at the AIS, lots of other places. He talks about this concept of the food nutrition network a lot, where how do we know that if you extract these vitamins out of their natural environment, that's with all this fiber, with all these phytonutrients, with all these other antioxidants, with the carbohydrates, the sugars, and everything else, how do you know that that vitamin behaves the same way in the body when you take it out of its natural environment and out of that food nutrition network? And it's a very good question because we haven't really got studies comparing if you take the equivalent dose of this, what happens. So it's very interesting. If you do isolate all of these things, put them all in a powder, do you get the same result as if you were to eat the equivalent of fruits and veg? I feel like most people would say, oh, it's probably the later is going to be better for you.
Yeah, I think the synergy, like the synergistic effects of consuming like mixed meals, and what they can do in our body and for our health is, yeah, it's important.
This is a good one. And you've probably been asked this about 7,032,000 times across your career. But protein
Yeah.
straight after a workout, is that necessary? Is it not necessary? What's the dealio?
I would argue it's not necessary because again, total daily protein, if we're meeting our total daily protein, that's the number one important thing. However, I like to use post-workout meal, and when we should or have something or if we can wait a couple hours is how long was that workout? When was the last time you ate? Because if we're thinking about some endurance athletes who they might be out for 5, 6 hours. You probably don't want to wait on getting recovery nutrition. You probably want to get something right away. You like something mixture of fast acting carbohydrates and protein. Um, but that anabolic window of opportunity seems to not ring as true.
Yeah, Dr. Stu Phillips has done a lot of really cool research in that. And he's recently spoken about, I'm sure you've seen it, where the studies have come out that says, hey, you know what, you can actually absorb up to 100 grams in a sitting as opposed to the 20, 30 grams that we sit. And Stu's philosophy with it is like, yeah, you can have a lot, but realistically, where are you going to be in a position in a day where you're eating and consuming 100 grams in each sitting? It's probably more likely that, as you said, you're probably going to have to space these out. And if you've gone for a 6 hour run or you've been out on the road all day and you haven't had that, then yeah, you probably will have to have the bigger bolus. And if that does line up with your post workout timing, then yeah, maybe the bigger one is necessary. Sometimes it will be, sometimes it won't be. Like you said, though, total amount of protein across the day is probably best, right?
Yeah, that study you mentioned, Lane Norton made a really good point about that study. Something I didn't even think about too is that I think the protein, you can tell me if you remember this, that they used in that was casein, which is obviously like a lot slower metabolizing protein. And so it'd be interesting to see with that same protein bolus, like with lots of different types of proteins, like how that changes, if any.
That would be very interesting. How do you think it would change? Do you think it would make a difference?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, casein's very slow. So is it the fact that it's a little bit slower digesting and absorbing that is more helpful? Like, would it be the same with a whey protein that is a little bit faster or soy protein? I don't know. What do you think?
I would say my gut instinct would probably come back to how much you've taken across the day. And I think that your body, if you put it in there, I think we have this weird concept of the body that it just won't take on foods or it just won't absorb it. That's not how your stomach works. It's not how your transporters work. You put something in there, it's going to get absorbed, it's going to get digested. Whether it's optimally digested for whatever your goal is a
Right.
different scenario. I would think that how much you have and how quote unquote well it is digested would be in relation to how much your total daily has had. So I would even think that there is an argument that if you do nothing all day and then you eat all your protein at the end of the day, as long as you hit your amount, it probably will work and you will digest it all. That's fine. Can you physically do that? And if your goal is to maximize, say, hypertrophy or to gain muscle mass, is that realistic? Probably not. And that's why you're probably better off breaking it up in these smaller things, which I think at the end of the day would be the conclusion of all these studies. Yeah, you'd probably need a bit more than 20. You don't need 100, but you probably need to be spacing it out throughout the day.
Sure.
What about this next one? This one's going to hit me hard if you disagree with it because I don't care what the science says. I ain't giving up caffeine. But does caffeine cause dehydration? True or false?
So the studies I've seen have shown that it's not as dehydrating as previously thought, unless
The
we get
crowd
up
goes
to
wild. There's cheers
500,
everywhere.
that 500 milligram or more dose, but in moderate amounts, not really dehydrating. Although, man, like I do feel like I have to pee a lot right after I drink coffee. And like, is it just the fluid? Maybe is it I only drink coffee and a little bit of water in the morning and nothing else. So I've never experimented to see for myself, like if I drank tea, would I still get that same effect?
You're a runner, Hayden, so you probably get this. Do you, all your clients, I won't ask a personal question, let's say, do your clients drink coffee before their runs to go to the toilet to make sure that they don't stop on the way?
Oh, you can ask me that question. I mean, I think like getting coffee in the morning so you can go in the morning's like a great thing. But yeah, I do have clients that use it, but I'll have clients that do have GI issues, and we will target the coffee first to see if the intra-run GI issues in the morning are related to coffee, since we know it's a gastric stimulant. Um, but so I think it can be helpful sometimes, but sometimes it can be hurtful for sure.
I looked into this because I got obsessed with this for a while. And from what I found is that when you're having this caffeine, it's releasing this little enzyme called gastrin, which is causing this gastric motility, which is going to push everything through. So you have it, stomach figures it out, these juices comes out, this little enzyme that comes out is one of them, then it pushes everything through. What I've also found though is that a lot of our athletes, even if they get up and they just have water, or if they have electrolytes, if they have something, it seems to just cause the same effect. I think we're just so conditioned and used to having caffeine in the morning that it causes us to go. And then my theory for that is that it's kind of a mechanoreceptor type thing. Like if you eat too much food, yes, there's all these hormones and satiety hormones that make you feel full, but you can physically just eat so much that your stomach balloons up and your mechanoreceptors or your stretch receptors go, dude, what are you doing? Just stop. I feel like there is an element of that. Something comes in and your body goes, hey, time to go. But
Liquid too. I mean, the fact that it's often warm, I think, is an influencer, right? Because that can make things move a little bit faster.
so we're saying caffeine, one, no dehydration. So don't stress out if you like drinking coffee. Maybe
Yeah,
we could
it's
talk
moderate
about sleep.
amounts.
Moderate amounts. If you say 500 milligrams, put that in perspective. Like how many cups of coffee is that for the average Joe?
Five-ish.
Five-ish.
What would we say, right? Like a cup of coffee is like 90 milligrams caffeine-ish. Double shot espresso.
I'm always very skeptical just taking any coffee advice from anyone in America because not only do you have the worst coffee in the world, it's probably the most inconsistent. I don't know if I'm getting a
Whoa,
piccolo.
shots fired.
I don't know if I'm getting a piccolo or if I'm drinking a half a bucket of coffee where we go, but 500
Where's your
milligrams.
coffee coming from? Is it come? Aren't the beans coming from Africa too?
Costa
Do they grow
Rica.
coffee beans? Yeah, I'm like, do you grow coffee beans in Australia?
Yeah, but it's the way you make the beans, isn't it? It's just better coffee culture here, I guess. It's just yeah.
Yeah, well, if I ever come to Australia, I'm gonna think about this and yeah,
So
really
what's our
compare.
verdict? Caffeine, first thing in the morning, not going to dehydrate you. It's all good. Use it as well. Probably going to make you go to the toilet if you want to use that too.
Exactly. Good summary. Thank you. Rein
This
it
one's
back in.
this one's interesting, and you're in a far better position than me to talk about this. I've been super interested in it, so I'm really intrigued to hear what your answer is. Continuous glucose monitoring. Is that something athletes should be doing, or
So at this point, no. We have no standardization of how and this is in athletes like endurance athletes where they're wanting to use it to fuel. We have no standardization of my blood sugar is this and I should fuel with this. Um, and the hard thing about CGMs to begin with is they're not as accurate as people think they are. And when we have normal blood sugars, so outside of the diabetes space, we have less peaks and valleys in our blood sugars. And for whatever reason, I don't know the science behind this, it makes the sensor harder to read. So they're actually a little bit more accurate in people with diabetes. And the other component to this is some people are just so obsessed with data, like data, 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 right? We have all these things like the Aura Ring, the Whoop, um, our Garmin, our Coros, they're all giving us so much data, but data is only good if we know what to do with it. And is it even accurate? Which I know on some of the other things in watches, it's maybe not. Um, so my concern too with the CGM, outside of just not having any data to show like how do we use this from a fueling perspective, but also potential for disordered eating patterns. Like if you don't know what normal blood sugar response is, it could induce some fear about, oh my gosh, my blood sugar's spiking. This is bad. When it's like, no, that's actually really normal. Our blood sugar is meant to spike and it's meant to come right back down. We could talk about this for an hour, but so I'll try to be brief. But because a lot of times I'll hear too, people will say like my blood sugar spiked after I ate this thing, and oh, when you get a blood sugar crash, that's not good. But if you actually think about insulin's role in the body, if your blood sugar's not coming right back down after it spikes, that's not good. That's an indication of insulin resistance. We want to see a spike. We want it to come back down pretty rapidly. Otherwise, that means something is not right. Now, in within exercise, we can see really high blood sugars with high intensity exercise. So we can see blood sugars going into like diabetes level blood sugars. But does that mean that that's bad? No, we have a plethora of data showing that overall exercise is um, cardiometabolically protective against diabetes. So, no, not yet. I think there's some interesting things that will come about maybe with looking CGM use and under fueling and REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport. But I really caution against them.
so we're saying if you're an athlete now, you're looking to use this to improve your performance, we're just not there. Is it that we just don't know what to do with the data, and that's why we don't know
I'm
how
gonna
to use them?
I'm gonna theorize yes, but the other problem with this is right, our body is gonna work really hard to regulate blood sugar, right? Or else if we can't regulate it and it goes too low, we're gonna die. Right? Like so, blood sugar goes too low, we're gonna spill sugar from the liver to help keep blood sugar stable. Um, if we deplete those, our body's gonna find ways to keep the blood sugar stable. So it's really looking at, well, okay, well, at what point does my blood sugar get to what level that I need to eat? And is this individualized? Yeah, we just don't know.
Great answer. It's a good segue into this next one. Carbs are a superior fuel source for athletes. True or false?
True, obviously. What else do you want me to say about that?
Break it down, top to bottom. Why are carbs better?
Yeah, we just athletics in general is a very carb dependent sport. Even at moderate intensities, when we're still burning plenty of fat as fuel, we're still burning quite a bit of carbs as fuel sources. And when we deplete our carbohydrate stores, that is associated with a reduced performance. So it's good to keep our carb stores high, have a high carb diet. There's lots and lots of studies to show that we need a lot of carbs, anywhere from if, like a recreational athlete, depending on what sport they're engaging in. This is a huge range, but anywhere from like a 3 to 12 grams per kilogram of your body mass per day. So for anyone out there, you can do that math. I know it's a huge range. Just don't want to make it too tailored.
What about those athletes that completely disagree with that and they go, no, I want to be completely keto. I want to be more fat adapted. And you would see it because you're in the endurance space world. I've raced against them. I've competed against them. Guys that just say, hey, no, I'm going to do this without carbs. How does that work? How do those guys even get through those races if they're not eating carbs?
Well, I mean, your body will find a way to make glucose. And we can also turn protein to glucose very easily. Um, but I'd say they can do what they want to do. I guarantee you that they are not performing to their potential. And I used to be of the opinion that, like, if someone wants to eat low carb, or anyone, athlete or non-athlete, they want to eat really low carb, cool, it's their personal choice. Like, as long as we're getting in our adequate vegetables, like fiber, you do you. With some of the research I've seen, very little research I've seen in the exercise space, is that carbs might actually play a protective role in our overall health. Like I've seen where carb depleted athletes might have increased hepcidin, or hepcidin, however you want to say it, levels, which is the hormone that inhibits iron absorption, and as well as more markers of bone resorption, meaning we are breaking down our bone. So I just think there's got to be some sort of other benefit outside of performance that these carbohydrates are playing for our overall health. So now I look at it from a doing no harm perspective, and less as a, if that's just what you want to do. If someone's sedentary and they want to eat lower carb, I work in the diabetes space. I work with people who are eating low carb quite often. But in the context of athletics, I really think that a higher carb diet is going to be healthier in the long run.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well known now, especially if you want to perform and you want to go at your best. That whole saying, if you want to run faster, you need to eat more carbs. It's just undisputable. And I looked into that a lot actually, and I thought, you know what, why is that the case? Because I train with a lot of guys who won't do it, and they just go, "No, I'm fine with it." And I go, "Yeah, you know what?" And they're better athletes than myself, and they're better athletes than a lot of the people we train with. I go, "What's going on here?" Really, what I found in my research that it comes down to is that even if you are running and you are getting into the zone 4, zone 5, your body will still use fat. If you don't have the carbs, it'll still use fat, and it can absolutely break it down. And like you said, Hayden, we can get protein and through gluconeogenesis get some glucose in there. Where this makes a big difference, and I found this was fascinating in Louise Burke's work when she looked at the supernova studies, which have their pros and cons to them, but just the whole concept of when you look at the top end of that, when our body crosses over in an aerobic state where we're still having enough oxygen in our body to turn over these fuel sources, where most endurance athletes want to be sitting is pretty much on that, just below that anaerobic threshold, where we're not producing all the waste products so much that it's going to build up that we can't keep that intensity. When we're at that point, our body just produces more ATP, which is the energy system when we break down carbs. And when you do the chemistry and you do the maths and you just break that down, you look at a fat molecule and you look at a carbohydrate molecule, you put it through the equation with how oxygen breaks it down at that intensity, you get about 5% more ATP with the carbohydrates. And then you go, oh, 5% doesn't sound like much. And you go, yeah, but then you think about what's the difference in the 100-meter sprint between first and second? A whole lot less than 5%. And for most sports, when you're breaking up between first, second, third, whether it's a split decision in the UFC, whether it's difference between first and second in a 100-mile race, doesn't matter. It's a lot less than 5%. And if you could bottle up in a pill and give an athlete a 5% advantage, you'd make billions of dollars. But then the fact of the matter is, if you just eat a certain way for the intensity that you're doing, you're going to get that 5% advantage. I think a lot of people overlook that and they don't appreciate how impactful that is.
That's such a good breakdown. I'm so glad you brought that up. And it gets kind of frustrating too, and you have folks that friends or whatever that are super fast and they're not, they're not optimizing their own nutrition. They could be so much faster, but it's obviously not a priority. But it does, it can make some people like question, like, well, what am I doing? Like that fast person, they're not doing eating this way. They're not fueling during a race. I have a personal story with that. I have a dear friend who's very fast runner. Could easily probably OTQ, but just doesn't. She ran like a low 16 5K in college. She off the couch ran a 50K back in June. I went with her. And do you know who Tara Dower is? She just got the FKT on the Appalachian Trail here in the United States. She's wicked fast, great athlete. She just won. What did she do? She just got a golden ticket to Western States from some race not too long ago. My friend beat her off the couch and in a 50K. Like she had been training some with me, but I'm a lot slower with her. So her doing workouts with me is like it's not a workout for her. And I asked her, I'm like, oh, what'd you do for fuel? And she's like, I don't know. I like ate a gel an hour maybe. And like, I don't know how much I drank. Like, just doesn't even think about it, but is so wicked fast. But then I look at her, I'm like, oh man, if you actually like trained and you really honed in on your nutrition, you would be insane. Like she would just be like a beast. But yeah, anyway, just a little personal story.
Interesting because you see that a lot, and I saw that a lot when I got into MMA. These guys that were so ridiculously talented, but they had terrible diets, and then people were like, "Oh, so how much of a role does diet play?" And you go, "Well, it's not so much a role that diet plays because right now, I don't know, Hayden. Let's say you and I go for a race. Let's say we're doing rock climbing. I can't rock climb. You can. Let's say we're doing like speed bouldering or whatever. Even if you fasted for 2 days and then I rocked up eating the best diet ever for
I
bouldering,
just
you're still going to destroy me just because you're technically so much better. You got experience. Your muscles are just more primed for it. So realistically, training is what gets you there. It's like your friend, right? Your friend just has a huge training base. They've got all the cardio metabolic adaptations for that sport. But then you go, okay, well, what role does nutrition play? And you think, yeah, but what about all when you get to those top levels and everyone you're competing against has those adaptations? Everyone's good. This is where this 5% comes in. This is when you're racing for first and second. Maybe not for the average everyday Joes like you and me, Hayden, but when you get up to that top level, if you're trying to compete, not just survive in a race, that's where this makes a huge difference. And this is where getting maybe 2, 3 gels an hour or getting these extra fueling strategies, that makes a huge difference because, yeah, you've done the hard work. You've got this huge, massive adaptation to your sport where you're a great athlete. You've got the great base. Now you can get a huge amount of benefit by just pushing that to the top engine. But a lot of people don't, right?
sure.
Sure.
No, it makes sense. Like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would cringe at the thought of bouldering. I went rock climbing once, and I did it in the middle of a prep for an ultra. A friend invited me, and I was sore for probably about 5 days. I don't think I recovered for about 5 days. I was like, that was
Like
so
your
ridiculously
forearms and
hard.
like your upper body area that was sore or
Yeah, and
every
just like sticking your legs up in, and I'm pretty flexible. I did jujitsu. I've done jujitsu for close to 10 years now, and it's like I flexible in the way I can get my body in weird positions, but I was doing all these weird hangs and then holding them isometrically. I was like, God, this is such a hard sport. But
It is. It's like a really hard barrier to entry. I've been like climbing off and on for like 14 years. So there's a lot of technique that just gets developed where I can be pretty weak and then still climb pretty decently just from a technique perspective. But when I'm training really hard for ultras, I still try to like at least go to the climbing gym a couple days a week. But what I do is like I have to pull back. My legs are way too tired from running. It's just basically trying to keep my finger strength up.
for sure. Let's move this conversation. Let's talk about nutrition for extreme environments, which I think is becoming a lot more common, especially now that ultra endurance is really exploding. Like ultra endurance is exploding all around the world. I feel like 10 years ago it was like a bit of a taboo sport, and it was like, oh, not really many people are doing. Not a lot of research in there. There were some big names, but not a lot of commercialization like it is now. But it's huge, and a lot of these races take place in extreme environments, yet there's not a lot of good information about it. You try to look it up, you try to Google it, and you go, man, I got to race at altitude, I got to race in the heat. How the heck do I best get prepared for that? It's hard to find good info. So let's start with talking about racing in the extreme heat. Let's talk about the physiological changes that take place in extreme heat. When we say that, hot and humid environments, important, hot and humid. What do you do with your nutrition when you're going out and you're competing in an environment like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have increased sweating, you have like increased vasodilation. Your body's really trying to increase blood flow to keep you cool. We have reduced urine output because we're trying to maintain blood volume. We've got increase in core body temperature, so it just makes it a lot harder to stay cool. So the biggest thing on my mind with extreme heat is fluid. How do we maintain hydration? Because our we will be sweating higher than normal. Um, so I work with a lot of athletes that will run races in the heat. Some of them have incorporated some sauna. Some of the things I've looked at with kind of heat acclimation is exercising in heat. Sometimes if you're training though, I have a lot of friends too that like will train over the winter here in Salt Lake for a race that's down south in the spring. So most of their training is occurring in cold weather, and that's where something like using a sauna, if you have access to that at the gym, can be helpful in getting yourself a little bit more heat adapted. But yeah, from a perspective of the most prominent thing is increased sweating, staying on top of hydration.
Is there any numbers or anything that you can throw at that, or any strategies? Like, should guys be weighing themselves before and after drinking to that, or
Totally.
how do you go about that with your athletes?
Yeah, I do sweat rate testing with the scale. So weighing yourself before and after a workout. Trying to do a shorter one so that you don't need to drink to have that fluid intake really affect that weight differential. Because if you lose a pound during a run or a ride, whatever, that's about 16 ounces of fluid that you're losing. So understanding your sweat rate and understanding your sweat rate in different environments is very helpful to inform how much should you be taking in during a race. And so if I were the problem with the training in cold and racing in hot environment, that's always a sticking point with me of trying to figure out like, okay, your sweat rate is this in the gym when it's the windows are open and it's 20 degrees outside and it's probably like 55 in the gym. Your race is going to start in the 50s, but get up to like 70 something, 80 degrees. It is trickier to see, okay, well, how that will that sweat rate increase? So what I've done with some of my athletes who we can't get that exact number just because of that logistical issue is we made some assumptions of, okay, if this is what you're sweating here, you're probably going to be sweating more in hotter weather. So we just kind of aim high on estimating what that fluid loss is. But that's where doing sweat rate testing in different seasons can help inform you, like how much am I actually losing?
Do you have a preference for which camp you sit in? Are you in the drink to thirst camp, or are you in the camp of let's strictly map everything out, and then no matter what, you've got to be hitting these numbers each hour? Are you
I'm
somewhere in the middle, or
I'm a map it out. Yeah, I'm a map it out because even in thing, you can have hard exercise kind of dampen the that thirst response. And if you're already thirsty, you're probably dehydrated. And especially if we're talking about super hot, yeah, we can't just drink to thirst. But what I do is when someone has an ultra race and it's going to vary in temperature, right? We're going to start cold, we're going to move to high. We just keep it in the first X hours of the race. We're going to try to aim for what I do is like every 15 minutes, we're going to take in sorry, I'm going to use Imperial, like 4 ounces every 15 minutes or four large gulps, because we're going to assume like a gulp is an ounce. And that people find that pretty helpful is like first X hours every 15 minutes or whatever the time period is, I'm going to take X gulps because that's going to help me get that 60% or 70% um, um, rehydration. Because I don't, I kind of aim in the 60 to 70% range of fluid replacement. I'm curious what you recommend doing with that.
It's a whole discussion. I'm just going to clarify a gulp for everyone who's not in the crazy American system. So an
Oh,
ounce is what you'll get in a shot glass if you want to picture that a bit more. So imagine taking a shot of tequila, but you're taking a shot of water or electrolytes or whatever when you're running. Yeah, I definitely get my athletes to aim for 70%. I have a bit of a philosophy with it where I think you've got to have guidelines with your fluid hydration because a lot of the athletes I'm working with, I'm quite fortunate. I get to do a lot of the crazier ultra endurance stuff. So like the 200 miles, the 5-day events, the 10-day events. And I think if you're talking about like a half marathon, a marathon, you're probably not in an opportunity if you're kind of medium to elite where you're going to put yourself in such a position where you're going to be crazy dehydrated. I think if you're on the lower level, if you're more a recreational athlete, you probably just purely because time wise, you're going to be out there for longer, right? So if you're running 4 hours, 5 hours, you're in the heat. That's just more time for your body to dehydrate. If you're running a 2:30, 3 hour marathon, even a 3:30, just kind of drinking to thirst, you'll probably get away for it. However,
Sure.
when you get up at these ultra endurance events where you're going for 12, 16, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, we've got a cutoff of 110 coming up hours. That's where it's kind of got to be like, hey, yeah, let's put a number to this. Let's put some barriers. 70% is definitely where we like to aim for. But I always appreciate you're going to have hour, 2 hour, 3 hour stretches where you're just not going to want to take in anything. You've just got to be mindful. Okay, are we in a deficit? What are the signs of being in a fluid deficit? How do we get ourselves back out of this deficit without overdoing it? That's where having, like you said, Hayden, these measures where you know, hey, normally in this environment, I'm going to be sweating and losing 3 pounds an hour. So I know I didn't really drink too much over that. I'm probably 3 pounds in the ditch. So I need to get close to that, about 70% of that back in the next hour or so. Or, I'm overdoing this a bit more. I'm feeling really thirsty. I'm drinking a lot. It's not that hot. I'm peeing a lot. I've got to really wind this back and I've got to make sure I've got this sodium in there. But that just comes down to educating your athlete and spending a bit of time and just like simply, like you said, right? Getting the scale out and just having an idea. That's the thing that baffles me most when it comes to hydration. Some athletes, and I think we could go into a whole chat about this, about the low sweaters, high sweaters, and seems like you, Hayden, are kind of one of those ones that you can get away with not doing much because you're probably not going to have so much stress on your body. I'm a big sweater. I had a training session the other day and I did nearly 6 pounds an hour in sweat, which is crazy. So crazy amount of
What
sweat. So
percentage of your body weight?
6 pounds, yeah, it works out to about 4% of
Okay,
your,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I have one of these H drop armband monitors and I let local clients use it. I think I used it last year and it was like 65 degrees out and I was sweating so little that it didn't register. And granted, that's also like it's isolated, right? It's getting a measurement for my arm. Like I'm probably sweating more, right, in my feet, maybe from my head, but yeah, very low.
It's a tough one, the hydration, because I think our best answer is, like you said, it sounds so simple. And I think people get a bit mad when they're like, what, that's it? Like, I don't have to go to this. It's like, man, like really just get the scale out, do these different training sessions. Like Hayden said, if you can get in the hot environment, do it when you're in the hot environment, in the cooler environment, just see so you can have some type of numbers that you can put a system together, like Hayden said, so you have something so you know, hey, I need to have 16 ounces this hour, 32 ounces, or whatever it is, just so you're hitting, close to 70% of your losses. Is that where we're ending that one on?
Yeah. Yeah, and I really think because if we think about sometimes this how much per hour, we need to break it down further. How often are you going to take a sip out of your soft flask? Like if we have that kind of easy structure that okay, yes, we might be able to deviate from it a little bit of again the 4 gulps. The 4 large sips, I don't really know how else to call this, every 15 minutes, that's an easier thing to remember than I've got to take in X amount over an hour. Like, let's break it down a little bit further. Let's try to maybe put it together with whatever other calories you're taking in, like gels, chews, blah, 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 those kinds of things, just to bring
Yeah, I
that one
love
home.
that too. And you can set reminders on your watch, right? I think that's a really
Okay.
easy one because especially when you get I call it mush brain when you just can't put anything together after, say, like I get it about 6, 7 hours. I know just my mental capacity to think and break things down is just all on my crew. I can't do it
Can't
myself.
math during endurance exercise. Like it just doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to crunch numbers when all you're thinking about is putting your left foot in front of the other foot, not throwing up, not quitting, just trying to go to your happy place. You don't want to be doing basic algebra. But anyway, let's move on from that one, Hayden. Let's talk about the exact opposite of that. I spent a fair bit of time in Canada and I was there last winter and it was the first time I'd been over there in 2 years. I remember my first run was negative 17 Celsius. I don't know what that's in Fahrenheit, but it's freaking cold. It's pretty freaking cold. And it shocked me. I was like, man, I used to do this all the time. I used to run in this. And then I went out there and I went, oh, this is so uncomfortable running in this cold, even when you get going. What are the physiological changes that take place in that type of weather, in the extreme cold? And then how do you change your nutrition to suit that?
Yeah, I don't live in Canada. It's not quite as cold here. And I just Googled negative 17 Celsius. That's about 1 degree Fahrenheit, which is pretty chilly. I do a lot of skiing in that kind of weather. But yeah, well, and at the extreme heat and at the extreme cold, we're burning more calories, right? Like our body is working harder to maintain core body temperature. So we're going to have that increased shivering thermogenesis. So you might be um, and especially like in an endurance activity, you might end up needing to be taking in a little bit more calories if that's applicable. We do have a little bit more vasoconstriction because we're trying to keep our periphery warm. We're going to have reduced sweat production. But so certainly we need less fluid. But, and this is the trouble I get into because I have a low sweat rate, is it's like, it's cold. I don't need a drink. But then the longer you go. And then if you still are actually sweating a little bit because that's not going away, it is going to be harder to maintain your body temperature if you're dehydrated. Now it's actually going to be harder for your body to stay warm in that environment.
That's the craziest thing I found personally from training in the Great White North. And just that simple fact of your body burns more calories. And it seems so simple when you say it. I don't think it's intuitive because for me, it wasn't. When I went out there, I thought, okay, I'm bundled up. This will keep me warm. I'll be okay. And then you don't appreciate, hey, if I'm going to be exposed to these elements where everything is freaking cold, my body is going to have to work overtime to keep me warm here. I'm going to be burning more calories. That was just something that took me quite a while to be like, oh, you know what? I do need to keep eating. And then you go, okay, the physical logistics of that, my Cliff gels that I'm pulling out are now all frozen. So now I'm sucking on them. I'm not chewing them. My gel is like not a gel anymore. It's all this weird things in my sandwiches. It's very different, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think it's harder for me to want to eat in the cold and drink in the cold than it is in the heat. Maybe that's just personal. But really trying to keep foods close to your body is helpful. So if you have a vest that might get too cold. So if you have pockets or things, just to keep it close to your core can help keep things from freezing as much. Or I'm a big Uncrustable. Do you have Uncrustables in Australia? Do you know what that is?
No, no. I definitely have heard a lot of talk about Uncrustables. Maybe we
All
have something
right. It's
similar.
just it's like a frozen peanut butter and jelly sandwich that's crustless, white bread. But I don't know what it is about them, but they are superior to just a regular PB&J. But you take it out of the freezer and it thaws out in like 15 minutes, which also feels like magic. It's ready to eat so fast. But those are great because they don't really freeze as well. They stay really soft. They're a little high fat. I think it's like 9 grams of fat in them, but those work really well in really cold weather.
What other food options, if you're in the cold, are you taking? Because, like you said, it's a bit of a different kettle of fish when you've got to keep things next to you. Are you taking like warm,
I
like soup or anything, or are you taking just
I
mostly
don't.
diet?
I don't. I take like especially because if I'm doing like this is more like ski touring. Like if I'm skiing in the resort, I'm gonna pack myself a cute little lunch and go sit and eat. But if I'm ski touring, I'll bring gels. I just keep them close. Like if I'm wearing ski bibs, I have like a pocket in my chest and I'll keep I make homemade gels and I'll keep a big flask of homemade gel. The Uncrustables, I'll do sour gummy worms. Those stay pretty well, but no like nothing with nuts unless it's a peanut butter or almond butter, because those can get really cold and want to break your teeth. Honestly, if it's close to your body, you can do a lot. Like I also will bring this is super controversial, but I will bring a bladder because my backpack that I have to wear ski touring for my avalanche safety stuff has a zipper pocket that's protected. And as long as I like put it back in there and zip it up, and if I blow the water back, it actually stays not frozen. Like it stays good even in single digits. It's just the the little nipple on it will get kind of frozen, but that will thaw out kind of fast. But if you talk to anyone who skis a lot, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy if you say you use a bladder. But I don't know, it works for me. But the other tip is if you are wanting to bring fluid with you is sports drink. It has a lower freezing point. So um, packing some sort of sports beverage instead of water can be helpful.
Is your homemade gel recipe, is that a well-kept secret, or are you willing to share that with the
Oh, I'm
listeners?
willing to share it. Yeah, it's easy. So I do 65 grams. So I get a 150 mil soft flask like Hydro Pack makes. Actually, I have the recipe right here in my notes. But 65 milligram, oh my gosh, gram. I don't know where my brain's at. Maltodextrin, 65 grams fructose. And then if I want more sodium in it, I do 2 grams of sodium citrate because it's a little easier on the stomach. It doesn't taste quite as salty as sodium chloride. And then 90 grams of juice water mixture of choice. I like lime, a little ginger beer, and Angostura bitters, which sounds weird, but it's a delightful combination.
And is
But
that just all fluid, and then you're like free, or the maltodextrin and the fructose, is that powder form, and then you're just mixing it
yeah,
in? Yeah.
it's like if you look at right, most gels, that's what they are is maltodextrin and fructose, and you can buy those for mega cheap online.
How are
Like
you getting it into gel form?
it just you just whisk it. It just is in gel form. Like yeah, and then I just pour it into a flask. It takes me all of 5 minutes to make it, and then I just put it in the fridge the night before I need it, and it's good to go.
Yeah, I just bulk order the dextrose powder and the fructose powder and then mix it in, and then you can just add your electrolytes. I shouldn't say that because my company does sell intra-workout carbohydrate, and that's basically the reason why we did it. Was not because I was mad passionate about selling intra-workout. It was because, God, when I'm training so much, I'm so sick of making this. I'll just make the company print and produce it all ourselves so I can just scoop it. But it's super easy. I always see that so much, especially with recreational amateur athletes. Like a Morton gel is like over here is $7.50 for one
Yeah,
gel.
it's like $5 here. It's insane.
Yeah, and
I
it's so
just
simple.
I find the gel industry, some of that those companies, I'm like, this is a racket. Like these ingredients are very cheap. Like you're paying for packaging, like a convenient package.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like meal prep, right? You're just paying so you don't have to spend an hour or two to make it. But I couldn't recommend it more. Homemade gels. That's a cool recipe. I'll give that a try. So it's the 65-gram maltodextrin, 65-gram fructose. You've got the sodium citrate, which most products use now because it's a bit easier on your gut. And then you do the lime juice, ginger beer,
Yep.
and then Angostura bitters. That's correct.
Yeah. Oh, and sorry, you know what? With that 90 grams of juice, I actually do like half lime, half water, or else it will be way too tart. Um, but I put like just a little pour of ginger beer in it because I have like a very hot ginger beer. Like you can't like even drink it that fast because it's so potent. So it's like just a hint. So hardly contributes anything to it besides a little bit of flavor.
Yeah, you can all thank Hayden for saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars for your next race prep. But last question, last
Venmo
question
me.
before. Sorry, you go.
Just said Venmo me.
And yeah. Hayden James at Satiate Nutrition. Send it across. Last question before we get into some practical tips into actually what you do in a race. Talk about altitude. You live at altitude. I've been to Salt Lake City, and I remember the first training session I did. One of the mountains I got like maybe 45 minutes in, and I went, "Why am I so stuffed?" I was like, "This is actually ridiculous how stuffed I am." And then all these locals are just running up and down this mountain, and I was like, "Man, I shouldn't be this unfit. I'm like 6 weeks out from a race. I've been training for 6 weeks." I was like, "This is ridiculous." What changes in your body happen when you're at altitude? And then what do you have to do with your nutrition to adjust for that?
Yeah, a lot of things happen. And what's hard is kind of looking at various amounts of altitude, and it's kind of assuming too you're coming from somewhere lower to go higher. So we define intermediate altitude. I have notes for this because I did not remember off the top of my head. Intermediate altitude is about 1,500 to 2,500 meters, which is about 4,900 to 8,200 feet. Um, so we can see arterial oxygen saturation get above 90%. You're really not having altitude illness, like risk of that happening at that altitude level, but it is possible if you ascend rapidly. If you are going to more like quote unquote high altitude, which is about 2,500 to 3,500 meters, which is a 8,200 to 11,480 feet, you can have altitude illness common in that level. I won't go over some of the higher ones because most people aren't getting to 19 or 5,800 meters or 19,000 feet. But in that 3,500 to 5,800 meter or 11,480 feet to 19,000 feet, very high altitude. Altitude illness is super common. And what we can see is that the partial pressure of oxygen is lower so that we have reduced performance output under this hypoxia. And so our VO2 max will actually go down. So I actually looked this up because I didn't know this exact number, but our VO2 max will decrease by 6% for every 1,000 meters or 3,280 feet of elevation gain. Like that's quite a bit. No wonder you felt like dog shit.
Wow.
Because I'm
And what,
guessing you came from sea level.
yeah, yeah, no, and that makes sense. That's crazy though, because there's good studies, right, that even in a training block for say 4 to 6 weeks, not that you improve your VO2 max drastically anyway year on year, but 6% is a pretty standard amount that you would in a training block. So basically, see you later, all your training gains just from going up on the altitude.
Yeah, that one really surprised me when I read that when I was kind of getting. There's actually this study that came out. It was really like a review for mountaineering that just came out earlier this year. But we'll also see something called hypoxia inducible factor, which increases our red blood cell production, which is erythropoiesis. We'll see increased blood vessel creation, which is angiogenesis. But we'll also have increased glycolytic enzyme activity. So that's the rate at which enzymes are breaking down glucose to produce energy. But then we also see inhibition of oxidative phosphorylation, right? So that's a metabolic process that's making energy. So all of these things are more energy intensive. Our performance is going down. We need more calories. We need more fluid. We also see increased urination, reduced thirst at higher altitude. So that's a big thing that a lot of people struggle with is because you're getting these signals that say, I do not need fluid. I'm peeing a lot. I'm not thirsty, but you're likely having increased fluid losses from sweating more because your body's working harder, but also respiratory losses, like you're breathing harder. So you have all these things going against you to want to make you dehydrated at higher altitude. So those are just a few things going on. So I'll stop there and see questions, thoughts.
I want to put all this together because in lots of ultra races, especially if you're up in the mountains, say if you're going for 24, 30 hours, whatever it is, you're
Yeah,
probably starting in the morning when it's really cool, and you're probably starting at sea level, and then you're ascending up a mountain, or maybe five, depending how cruel the race director is. And then
yeah,
you're going in the middle of the day when it's really hot. So there's a whole new condition there. And then you're working your way up mountains and you're up in altitude, and you may be in that altitude when it's hot and maybe in there when it's cold. How do you put all this together then for these guys that have these longer races where they're going to be faced with these different conditions? They're going to be in the hot, they're going to be in the cold, they're going to be at altitude, they're going to be back at sea level. How do you put all this together and go, okay, here's the best plan for your nutrition for you to get through this race?
yeah. So similarly to earlier when I said we kind of get some estimates of what's my sweat rate when it's cool, what's my sweat rate when it's warm, and we just say, okay, first X-ish hours, we're going to aim for this amount of fluid intake and then this these time periods when it's warmer, we're going to bump that up to this other fluid intake. I'll be honest, like I don't make a lot of changes to recommendations of like how many calories, carbs per hour we're going to take in at this point in the race versus another point in the race. So, like sometimes I just think trying to keep things as simple as possible, like you mentioned earlier, like brain is mush. Like how many things can we really concentrate on when we're exerting ourselves to that level? So I actually do keep things consistent. However, like with my clients locally here, or even myself, like I'm sitting here at 4,200 feet. During the summer, I'm going to go run up to 8,000 to 10,000 feet. Of really trying to practice, really pushing yourself on how much you can take in per hour. So really trying to practice intra exercise fueling so we can improve our tolerance level and improve how much we can take in per hour because you are going to be exerting or sorry, burning more fuel at higher elevation. So practicing that fuel intake, not just during long runs or long rides, but I'm a big proponent of you've got to practice that and try to get to your high end during workouts because a lot of times people are racing at a harder effort than what their long run is. And so they're able to tolerate foods at a like lower intensity level. And then now suddenly intensity levels going higher and they're like, I just can't eat this 60, 75 grams of carb per hour or whatever it is that I can at a lower intensity level. So really practicing during those key workout days to help
So a
improve
lot of the
tolerance.
hard work happens before you get in the race. Is that what we're saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Always, right?
As with any race, no matter what the condition is. Now, let's put all this together for the listeners. And this is a cool question. If you had to summarize the optimal fueling plan for a mid-30s recreational runner who's completing their very first marathon and they're aiming for a sub 4 hour time, so very respectable time, what would you say is their optimal fueling plan?
And we're saying like race specific or like in just general.
For during their race, what do they need to be
Great.
doing during their race to get through this to hit sub 4 hours?
Yeah. So first, I would encourage them to do a carbohydrate load, and I would make that carbohydrate load recommendation based on what they are typically taking in their diet. So sometimes I'm working with clients, like my coaching program's 3 months, but I also offer like a race day fueling plan where I don't know what they're doing on a general basis. We are really honing in on race day. Um, because eating a high carb diet in general is going to help um, increase your tolerance of carbohydrates in general. And so if you take someone who's not used to eating high carb and you try to carb load them, they might not feel good. Like it might just feel like too much. So depending on what their general carb intake is, I'll carb load them. If we're not used to high carb, I'll do a carb load of like 8 grams per kilograms, which is not a true carb load, but could still be helpful. Or upwards of like 10 to 12 grams per kilogram of their body mass starting. I do like 2 days out. The race is Saturday, then they'll carb load Thursday, Friday. I know some people go a little bit out more, but that's just kind of what I find people don't want to carb load for longer than that because it's not very fun. And then, well, assuming we have a sweat rate for, you said a 4 hour marathon?
4 hour.
Okay. I'll still maybe get a sweat rate on them, especially if they are a heavy sweater or if they have a history of things like cramping. Because cramping could have so many like right, like so many different reasons for cramping potentially. But I'll still encourage some hydration depending on the conditions and how like sweaty of a human they are. Um, I will recommend intra-run fuel. I'll probably go a little more conservative on that and be like more in like the 30 to 45 grams of carb per hour. If they're a larger human, I might go up a little bit more. I saw that newer study that showed that maybe larger people might have higher carb oxidation levels. But I just kind of go with what have they practiced? What are they comfortable with? Um, and yeah, I focus only on carbohydrates. So I'm being very calculated, not saying calories, because someone like that, we don't need to take in protein and fat during that. We just need carbohydrates by themselves. Gels, chews, whatever they're comfortable with. Um, I think that's all I can think of in the moment. What would you add to that?
I will add a question. Is there a pacing slash eating plan within,
Yeah.
say, each hour? Like, are they doing it, like you said earlier, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45? How do you do that?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the person. Again, if they're like a super sweater, and they're losing a lot, then yeah, I might have them take in some fluid every 15 to 30 minutes. If they're not really, then we might drink a little bit to thirst. We might just, have a single, like I'll do a lot with athletes is having a single soft flask handheld because it's perfect. It's just a little bit of fluid, and it's a good place to store their gels. And that 30 to 45 gram of carb per hour. That's about like just like if we have a certain gel, that could be like a gel an hour, because if it's only 30 grams, that's about one gel. Or if it's about 45 grams of carb, that could end up being two gels. And we'd space it out every 30 minutes. I'm kind of aggressive. Maybe I don't need to be, but I would say let's start that 30 to 45 minutes into the race.
Perfect. And if they're having gels, they're having Hayden's homemade Satiate Nutrition gels, correct?
Mhm.
All
We'll
right,
bottle up
perfect.
and sell it, and now we're gonna lose the deal.
Yeah, that's it. All right, that's perfect. Well, last two questions that I ask everyone that comes on the podcast, and I give it to you ahead of time because they're quite tough. I've got asked this, and it kind of stumped me, and I had to take a back seat, and it's been very interesting hearing people's response to this. So, in a general sense, how do you define performance?
Jordan, I really thought about this question because you
Oh,
sent it. And then I ignored it. And then I said, you know what? This is a weird thing to think about because not a very philosophical human, and I don't really think deeply about things like this. And I don't take myself too seriously. So I'm gonna pass. Performance. It's whatever you want it to be. Like, how seriously do you take your sport? Performance is it could mean going out there and having fun and giving your best. It could mean I stuck to my training plan or in my fueling plan, and like that's the outcome I want. I don't know, man. It's not a good answer, but
no bad answers, more personal for
there are
you. What
Jordan, there are bad answers. Okay, let's be real.
there's
But
good answers and there's probably less good answers, but no bad ones. What does performance mean to you in your life right now? What are you trying to perform in?
what am I trying to perform in right now? I do have some performance goals this year.
Fill them out.
Right. Okay, so um I'm doing a 50K race here for the third time. It's Speed Goat 50K, so it's a 50K, but it's like 11,000 feet of vert. So yeah, it's a lot. It's really tough. And last year I raced it, and um I raced it almost an hour faster than the time I did before, but I had horrible cramping issues. Like both my vastus medialis cramped like crazy. My triceps cramped like crazy, which just baffles me because I actually like work out my triceps and like lift kind of heavy. And so I was really shocked by that. Um, but I want to pull off 30 seconds per mile for that race this upcoming year. And
Run with poles in that or a pole free? Do you run?
I'm poles. It's so verty and technical. Like the ups need the poles. I think that's why like my triceps cramped. I think they were like overworked.
I remember when I got ready for a race with 30,000 feet of vert last year, and my strength coach was like, all right, dude, we're doing dips and you're doing closed grip bench press and you're doing all this like tricep work. I was like, why? And he goes, you're going to need it. You'll appreciate it when you're halfway through that race and your triceps are absolutely screaming at you because you're just pushing down on those poles so much. You don't think about it too much.
Well, we're gonna work out my triceps more. I started out with this. I was like, oh, maybe like a little aesthetic goal. Let me work out my triceps. And now I'm like, shit, I need my triceps really strong for all this pole work. Um, what else? I feel like I have one more thing. Yeah, I have some climbing, so a little bit of climbing goals once running tapers off. I used to climb a ton, and just the last 5 years have not climbed very much. So I really want to send 3, 5, 12 routes this year. It's a grade that I've sent a few of the grade before, but to send at least three of those this year would mean that I'm getting more consistent with climbing outside, which is what I need. So yeah, that's what I got going on.
Perfect. Last one, and then I'll let you get out of here.
Oh,
People listening to this, how do they get in contact with you?
yeah, so you can email me, hello.satiatenutrition at gmail.com. I'm also on Instagram at Satiate Nutrition. And then my website, satiatenutrition.com. I have an application form if you want to work with me for one-on-one nutrition coaching.
And you take all types of athletes, just endurance athletes, or what's the clientele?
Really, almost all types of athletes, unless you're a combat athlete, like I am not the person to help you weight cut. Jordan is.
Not the type of people most people want to work with either, the old combat dudes. But anyway, all right, Hayden, that's a great chat. Thank you. I know I went a bit over time here, but I appreciate it so much. And can we give a quick shout out though? Got one big conference coming up at the end of the year. People should be buying tickets and they should be listening. Can you give us a 2-minute spiel about that?
Yes, thank you for reminding me because I completely forgot. So, I am the conference director of a new sports nutrition conference for healthcare professionals. It's called Fuel Fest, and Jordan is speaking at the conference. This is a 1-day virtual conference, and the topics are all focused on endurance, ultra endurance, and mountain sports. So, it's very niche. We have a fabulous speaker lineup, and you should register. It's registration is open now. Oh, the conference date. It's November 7th. It's very early, but if you're planning your continuing education for the year, you should absolutely consider it. It will be a blast.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. Very much looking forward to that one. All right, Hayden, thank you so much, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.